please put your hands together for Renee Warren.
Wait, we gotta keep that song on. This is what I do. Everybody stand up. So what's funny about this song? What do they say? I wish I was a little bit taller, which is ironic because I'm 6 feet tall. I know you are all hungry, but I have a really fun presentation for you guys today. Okay. So, hi. I have learned a lot about this crowd. We just like to burn shit down, don't we? We like to start something amazing and burn it down. So how do I do this? Okay, there we go. So I thought I'm going to do a presentation on monetizing your authority and harnessing authenticity to build trust and influence to learn about how to do PR for your business. Does everybody want to learn how to gain visibility, grow your authority, get on podcasts, get in the media? So a little bit about me. I am Renee Warren, the founder of We Wild Women, which is a PR agency, coaching, and training program. I am a podcast host of a show called Into the Wild. We made it to the top 1% of podcasts in the world. Now, let me tell you, though, that podcast started on April 27th, 2020. Kind of a funny time, isn't it? I kept talking about it. I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. It can't be that hard. Amy Porterfield said, blogging is dead. Podcasting's a new thing. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'll just record my voice and we'll put it online. It's not that easy. So I remember talking about this to my husband, Dan, and he stopped me one day and he goes, would you shut up about it and just do it? Like, pick a day and launch your podcast. And I'm like, screw you. Thanks for the support. He's like, open up your calendar. So I'm like, April 27, 2020. And I launched it, not knowing what it was going to do for me or my business. But I'll tell you one thing that happened in those first few months. It was the best damn therapy that any woman could ask for, going through a pandemic, shut down, and I got to interview the most brilliant women. Some of you are in this room to be on the show. So the other thing I did back in 2018, I wrote a book called Get Covered. Any authors here? Put your hand up. Wrote a book? Yeah, self-published, keep your hand up. So this took me over 2 years to write. The hardest part was actually uploading the file to Amazon Books. I couldn't figure out how to use... It's so stupid. So anybody want to start a new business, there you go. Problem solved for you. Wow, that was a time. And I just thought, so this book, the reason why we wrote this book is at the time I had an agency that worked with funded technology companies out of all over, from San Francisco to San Diego to South Africa. And we had one of the top blogs in the industry. So I'm like, let's just compile all of our top blog posts and we'll put it in a logical order and we'll print it. Well, that's not how you write a book. So it took me 2.5 years to fill in the blanks. I won some awards. Woohoo! And I'm a mom to Irish twins. I have 2 boys that are 11 months apart. Any mothers to Irish twins in the house? Woo! Yeah, I don't recommend this for many reasons. The advantage is that it's pretty much one long phase for everything. And your second child, I mean, your body's already full of relaxants, so your second child literally just shoots right out of you. And I remember, so Max is my oldest. When he was born, it was my parents' first grandchild. My mom was in the room with me, and so was Dan. Dan, first-time father, he's like nervous, and same with my mom. And so there was so much like excitement and worry and like holding my legs, and all this stuff was happening. And Max was born. It was almost like we were winning awards. It was so dramatic and awesome. 11 months later, I'm doing the same thing for Noah, and I'm pushing. Dan is on his laptop, not to throw him underneath the bus, and my mom's in the corner on a rocking chair reading a book. Like, this kid is just as important. So anyways, that is my story about having Irish twins, and we're going to get into some more detail about that too. But before I get started, I did the QR code, just like we learned about yesterday. If you want to get access to this document where I actually share the proven pitch strategies to get you in the media, on podcasts, on radio, television, I share some of the actual pitches that I used to help get some of my clients in the media. I've had clients on all the top publications. The Steve Harvey Show had one of my clients do an entire episode on him. Like, I've done the things. I've got clients in some of the top podcasts, and I share that stuff in there. So you can either find me on social, so Instagram, Renee_Warren, and direct message me, MYM. I know some of you are like, Renee, I'm so excited to see you at MYM. And they're like, oh, here's your download. I'm like, oops, we triggered that too soon. Or you can take a screenshot of the QR code and you'll get access to this. So why I'm putting this at the beginning and not the end? A couple things. I'm actually looking down at my toes, and I have a funny story I want to tell you. My friend Courtney Valaket, who's in this room, does a lot of personal styling for my husband and I was mad panicking, trying to find something to wear before coming here. And listen, I have a closet full of clothes. 50% of them still have their price tags on. Dan, plug your ear. I just don't have an occasion to actually wear these things. And so Courtney's like, what are you wearing on stage? And I'm like, oh, fuck it. I just found something in my closet, threw it in my bag. And then I was taking a picture of this outfit yesterday. And these shoes are actually not closed toes. You can see my toes. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can see my toes. It totally throws off my entire outfit. And then so she kind of goes through an idea of something that I could wear based on what she knows that I have. And I was like, I'll just put on black socks. I think I brought some. No one will know. It turns out you can't know. So if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. So this morning, I'm going through my socks, of which I was confident that I had packed plain black socks. And as I'm pulling them out, I see that there's prints all over them. I'm like, I'm already stressed out, and I'll tell you why in a minute too. And I was like, this socks, you're gonna see my socks. But as I unfolded these socks, do you know what the socks said? And I knew I owned these socks, but like as luck would have it, I accidentally packed them. The sock says, average sucks. And I'm like, well, that's ironic, because today we're not actually going to be talking about PR. And if you have any questions about how to get in the media, on podcasts, you name it, by all means, email me, Renee@wewildwomen.com, or follow me on social. I give all my good shit away. I redid my entire presentation, of which I had been spending a couple weeks on for this event particularly, and I had given it many times over. But I redid this presentation last night at midnight. And I was sitting, Dan had already gone to bed, and I was sitting there working. I was like, you know what, I'll finish working on this when the sun goes down. The sun doesn't fucking go down in Calgary. It's like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, this is pretty, but wow, like, please go down. Because there are so many things that came up. But here's the thing, this group, every single one of you, like energetically, I can feel that whether or not you're in this room or in the bathroom, you have all been incredible. Just seeing you like in the hallways, and Sarah's team, wow. Dan and I were in the green room before, and I was getting my makeup done, and like a huge applause to everybody who put this together, because even Dan, so even my husband, who has spoken on some of the biggest stages in the world, I'm talking Tony Robbins, like you name it, we were sitting around this table, and he goes like, holy shit, like sifting through this newspaper that Sarah and the team put together. And he even said how incredible of a job this was. So I am so honored to be up here to tell you about a couple stories in my life that are really important to you, in actual perfect extension of Megan's previous presentation. So I want to tell you about my story into launching my first agency. So I was actually 8 months pregnant when, that's me full term. It's just like a little basketball. That's the advantages to being tall, is it stretches out. I always pictured my kid starfish in my stomach. I was 8 months pregnant when I launched my first agency, because I thought that babies just slept all the time. So I figured we could do this. Turns out they do sleep during the day, not at night. And at the time, Dan was traveling. He was raising money for a startup. we were landing clients so quickly all over the world. We were focusing on just funded technology startups, and we were traveling, giving presentations, my business partner and I, and things were going really well. And then Max was born. And has anyone here had really bad postpartum depression? Put your hands up if you're comfortable. It is so debilitating because when the nurse puts your baby on your chest, you think you're supposed to have this instant bond, like you love this thing. And I didn't. I didn't for at least 3 months. And it was so challenging. I had mastitis. Like, come on, why do I need this on top of all of this stuff? And I was holding this cute little baby, and I didn't like him. I loved him. I didn't like him. I actually found freedom in going to work. And little Max went to daycare full time when he was 5 weeks old, and that was freedom to me. And I knew that I was supposed to just be loving this baby, holding him, nursing him, doing all these things. What happens is when you're not eating, you're not nourishing your body, you're not resting, you actually don't produce milk. So I was having that problem too, all these things. So we finally get into this rhythm. And I remember the OBGYN saying to Dan and I at an appointment that we weren't to be intimate for about 10 weeks. Dan's smiling. So he's in there and he's like, okay, 10 weeks, October 10th, 9 a.m., reminder set. Like, so ladies, it happened. Turns out you are the most fertile right after you have a baby because the OBGYN is telling me, we're talking about like all that stuff, like whatever, like hormone stuff. And I was like, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm never having sex again, just so you know. It's never happening, so we're safe, we're good. Okay, so it happened, and then Max was about 4 months old, and I was like kind of starting to feel good again. And I was weighing myself, and I jumped on the scale, and I was at my pre-pregnancy weight already. I had lost a lot of weight. And I was like, get off the scale, and I'm like, I actually don't feel well. And the body takes forever to get your period again also. I was like, I feel like I should have had it by now. And I was like, oh, could I possibly be pregnant? And so I said to Dan, Dan, could you please go get 18 pregnancy tests? Because one, even if it says yes, it's not ever accurate, ladies. We know this. It's always accurate. But I needed proof. So I got every single possible ones you can buy at the store, come home, close the door, and I did all the tests, and I waited there. And he's waiting outside, anticipating. You have to remember, Max is not even 4 months old at this point. So I open the door, and he looks at me, and he's like, oh, fuck. Pregnant, and it was the last thing that I wanted. It was so tough. Here's the problem. This is the actual picture, by the way. I had really, really good friends at this time that were going through, they were having a really difficult time conceiving, and these were some of my best friends. The last thing I could possibly ever tell them is that I was pregnant again. These are the people you want to share the joy with, but I didn't want this baby. I didn't. And it was about, 3 months in, I was at a Tim Hortons. Guys, I love Tim Hortons coffee, okay? So if you ever want to get me anything, Tim Hortons coffee. And if everybody here knows anybody that works at Tim Hortons, I'm trying to get my podcast sponsored. So if you can make an introduction, that would be amazing. I talk about it all the time on my show. So anyways, I'm standing at Tim Hortons, and this is like one of those janky ones where I'm like, I thought I was peeing my pants, when you're pregnant. And so I'm checking out with my coffee, and I was like, I knew this place had a key to go to the bathroom. And I was like, can I please have the key to the bathroom? So it's those ones that connected to a gigantic metal spoon. So I go up to the door, and I unlock it, and I'm sitting there, and when I pulled my pants down, there was just blood everywhere. So I'm like, yes, I'm miscarrying. This is what I wanted. No, it turns out that I had a hematoma, and it was at one of those issues where it's like either the baby wins or the blood clot wins, and it turns out the baby wins. So we had welcomed little Noah. He's on the right side. Now look at this picture. What do you find interesting about this picture? I am working in every single photo. I was working all the time. That was my savior. However, what I realized was I kept getting compliments. Renee, you are a powerhouse woman. I can't believe you're doing all of this. This is amazing. You're a powerhouse couple. And I liked that. I liked that identity. I can do this. And you know what the message was that I was sharing to all these people, these women? You can do it too. You can have 2 babies in the same year and start a business and grow a business and your husband travel too. It is fun. No, it's not. It's not fun. I remember one time I got into my brand new Mercedes that my husband bought for me. Thank you, Dan. And it was parked in the garage, and he parked on the end of the driveway. So now you know what's probably going to happen. Is I was reversing, looking forward, and I smashed into his car because I was exhausted. I was exhausted trying to live up to other people's expectations of me. Like, that was the worst part of raising these beautiful boys. And I can tell you a million stories that happened. Another one is when we finally got to dropping them both off at daycare. I remember driving them to daycare, dropped off Max, and then proceeded to go to the office. When I got to the office, I thought, I'm missing something. Looked back in my seat, and I saw that I'd forgotten to drop off Noah as well. And I almost went into the office without bringing him to daycare. So God knows what would have happened. And these were just like a handful of the events that happened. And all for the sake of living up to other people's expectations of me. I was eating crap food. I was skinny fat, as they said. I wasn't working out. I wasn't happy. I wasn't a part of the community. I wasn't hanging out with my girlfriends. I wasn't coming to these types of events. Like, this is therapy. Does anybody here, does it feel like this is a little bit therapeutic? Maybe a lot bit therapeutic? Right. And thank you guys, by the way, for letting me to just burn down my last presentation and tell you about this story. So I was getting all the awards, the accolades, asking to speak on stages, getting flown into New York and San Diego and Phoenix to speak on stages. There were moments that I was high-fiving Dan in the airport. I was coming, he was going. I'm like, where are you going? He's like, I don't know. Where are you coming back from? Where's the kids? Ha! And it wasn't that cool. Like, yes, it's a story now I can share. Like, I'm thankful that I can share this story because don't do this. And I think what's happening is, especially in my industry, but we were doing business in an era when it was all about the hustle, like bro culture, go, 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 don't stop. And that's just bullshit. You can grow a sustainable, amazing business without having to work your butt off. You can have a business without having to ignore your children and question who's even watching them at the moment. All for what? To live up to other people's expectations. So I got to be in Forbes, I got to contribute to Entrepreneur. These things are beautiful, they're great accomplishments. But this means nothing. It means nothing because the most important thing are the people at home waiting for you. So I wanted to share this because it took us 3 shots to get married. And by the way, it's only official if it's on Facebook. So the first time when Dan proposed, we had been dating for a year, and he proposed, and I said yes, obviously. And I got pregnant with Max, and he was due on the same day as our first wedding, literally the same day as the first day we're supposed to get married. And so we had to postpone the wedding. People had already started buying plane tickets and booking hotel rooms. So we had to tell people that the wedding is postponed. But guys, remember Noah. So we invited everybody back around the same time the next year. And then we're like, we're pregnant with our second child, and he's also due on our wedding date. But you know what happened on the third invitation is our list of invites had actually changed. And I'm like, thank God we didn't invite that first list of people. These are much better friends. So anyways, we got married, so much fun. In our backyard, 135 people. We wanted a small wedding, and we had to be married where no one's been married before. So we decided to just throw a party in our backyard. Good times, good times. Okay, so, oh, by the way, super huge supporter. We were reading the newspaper today in the green room, and what was the question? Like, who has inspired you the most in business or something? And Dan's like, oh, Renee, who is it? And I'm like, he goes, is it me? I'm like, oh, probably not. And he goes, oh, you mentioned me. I forgot that I had mentioned Dan. But he didn't even fill out the form, so I win. Now, I don't even know what the next slide is, so I'm really hoping that this segue is really good. It is. Okay. Huge news, by the way. I got a nose job. And why this story is important, because this is kind of how we're going to wrap it up, is this is something that I've been wanting to do for 30 years. 30 years, I hated my nose. This was only a month ago, guys. First time on stage without feeling shy, without feeling self-conscious, and it's still a little bit swollen. So I do have one ask, is the next time you see me, anytime you see me, just tell me how cute my nose is. So anyway, grade 7, I remember this moment. One of my good friends, her name happened to be Sarah. We're going to change her name. Emily. Emily and I were rearranging our desks in a grade 7 English class, and she didn't like where her desk was pointing or something like that. And we were arguing, and it just so happened these two boys, Mike and Dean, walked in the room. Mike had a crush on Emily and saw that we were arguing, so he stood up for her and said, oh yeah, did you get a nose job to get your nose bigger? And I'm like, I never even paid attention to my nose prior to this. I didn't know. And I grew self-conscious about that for 30 years. I hated it. I don't mind my little itty-bitty titties. I don't mind that, like anything else on my body. I hated my nose so much. Never told anybody. I didn't tell people because then it would just draw attention to my face. So 30 years hating that part of my body. Then I spent the last 5 years doing research, talking to plastic surgeons from LA to New York to Kelowna to Vancouver and everywhere in between. And I finally found one that I loved in Vancouver. But I also would only do this procedure if my husband was on board. That was the only person that it mattered. And so he was like, I just love you the way you are, which, by the way, is probably the worst, best compliment. It was like, I don't like it. So got the procedure done. And Dan has a media company. He already shared this with you. He's like, let's just do like a mini documentary. We'll do like live footage. Sam will come in and we'll document the whole thing and it'll be great and everyone will want to hear about it. I'm like, fuck no. I don't want people to know that this is what I want to do because there is so much shame wrapped up to it. The months leading up to the procedure, I didn't get my period. I started getting sweats, like hot flashes, and I thought I was going through perimenopause. I called up my friend Kira Foy, who's in the audience. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, you're stressed. I'm like, no, it's viral, or it's menopause. I can't be stressed. Well, it turns out it was stress. I had not told my parents yet, and I'm really close to my parents, and I didn't want them to feel offended or insulted that I was going to get a nose job from the nose that they gave me. So here I am thinking they're going to think the worst case scenario. So I called them up. My parents are always together. They're 78 years old. They've been married for 50-something years. Awesome people. So I called up. My mom answers the phone, which is odd because my mom's hard of hearing, and talking to her on the phone is a pain in the fucking ass. And so I'm like, where's Dad? She's like, oh, he's gone out. Okay, Mom. So we just small chat, and we talked about, the weekend that they wanted to come and visit us in Kelowna in August. And I was like, I will verify with Dan, but maybe these dates work. August 16th, I don't know. The reason for my call, Mom, is because on Tuesday, so in like Tuesdays, I'm going to go get a nose job. And she's like, oh, okay. How long's the procedure? Who's bringing you? How long's the recovery? And I'm like shaking, thinking she's going to be so disappointed and so pissed off. She's like, oh yeah, so about those dates in August, your father and I was like, what? I lost my period. I got night sweats and hot flashes and thought my parents were going to disown me, and you don't even care? Okay. And she's like, your father will call you back when he's home. So an hour later, my dad calls, and my mom hadn't told him the same scenario. He's like, yeah, we thought about like coming out in August. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to get a nose job in 48 hours. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry I gave you that nose. That's from me. I'm like, okay, so, and I got it done. I got it done. And I whispered it to some friends, and some of you were in the crowd, and everyone's like, yeah, you go do you. So 4 or 5 days after the surgery, I posted to Facebook, because I'm like, you know what, people are going to find out. So I posted it to Facebook. because it's kind of like a small community of people. Most people I know, and I figure like, if anyone's going to be an asshole, I'll just unfriend them anyway. And that's not what I got. I thought people were going to shame me, were going to say stuff like, way to go for, supporting patriarchy's stronghold on perfectionism. You're just doing what all these people want you to do, what all the media wants. No, that's not, because the media wants me to have bigger boobs and a six-pack ab and all that stuff. I'm doing this for me, but nobody said anything. In fact, I got phone calls, direct messages, text messages, you name it, of people confessing of all the procedures they'd have done. 3 nose jobs, a chin tuck, lobe things, tummy tucks, butt lifts. I'm like, holy shit. There's a whole world of plastic surgery I didn't know existed, and everybody was silent about it because they were all worried about exactly what I was worried about, to share this with the world. And so this is truly just a metaphor to understand what part of our life are we holding back because we're so damn worried about what other people are going to think. So here's a little before and after. I say so myself. I'm so proud of the quick results. In my mind, I look meaner and older in the old version and younger and happier in the new. And that was only like 3 weeks after surgery. So the old me was upset. I hated my face. I hated what I looked like, but I was so worried about what other people were going to say. Also, societal expectations are like, you have to look this way, but you're not allowed to get the work to get it to look that way. So you have to be born perfect. But then if you're born perfect, there's all these other reasons why you're not good anyway. So I'm like, fuck this. Let's just burn down these stereotypes. If you don't want to run the business like Megan was explaining, turn it off. So we have to really ask ourselves these questions. And I want you guys to think about these too. Where are you holding yourself back? In life, in love, relationships, as parents, in business, like taking the trip or not, buying a ticket to Wealth Stock, which is the Coachella for business, right? Yeah, but I have a Ferris wheel there. What are you doing about it today, right now? Make a goddamn decision. I actually posted about this the other day, and I know my friend's in the crowd, and she's like, are you calling me out? I was like, yeah, I'm calling you out for sure. I go, why are women so indecisive about making decisions about investing in themselves? Like, why do we pause? Why are we stopping ourselves? Men, when I work with them in my PR agency, they pay the bill right away. They're like, yep, send the contract over, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why do we dance around these things? Why can't we just be more decisive? But really it comes down to, who are you really? And here's why. Do you know the emotion that emits the highest frequency? Authenticity. It vibrates higher than love. In fact, it vibrates 4,000 times more than love. And authenticity happens when your words are truthful. You believe what you are saying. So where in your life are you inauthentic? I was inauthentic in thinking that I should be a mother to 2 babies and run a business because that looked good on me. I was inauthentic in waiting to do something for myself because of people like Mike and Dean. And by the way, I'm a really good internet searcher, and I kind of creeped at these guys afterwards too. I'm in a better place, so we're good. So what is next is not what you're going to do, but really what's next is, who are you going to become? Who are you going to become to make that decision to do the thing for yourself? For me, it was like getting the nose job, which is a metaphor like, why did I wait so long to do this for myself? It is the ultimate expression of yourself. The moment I woke up from surgery, by the way, I did not do the twilight surgery. I'm such a wimp. I went under. When I woke up, I was a little bit groggy, and I was so excited. It felt like there was a 300-pound elephant lifted from my shoulder. And the nurse is like, do you want a popsicle? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want a popsicle. We're celebrating this new nose. Meanwhile, cast, just ooze coming out of my face, bruising. But it was such an amazing moment. I have so much more energy. And I'm not saying that you have to go and get plastic surgery, please me. That is not the message I'm trying to share. What I'm trying to send to you, the message is, how inauthentic are you to yourself about something that you know you need to do? Because, as Megan said, like the gut is the instinct, like my husband says too, is no one's ever said no to their instinct. No one's ever been wronged by their instinct, because it's almost like God is telling you this is what you need to do. God told me last night at midnight, while the sun was still setting, I needed to share this presentation. And I actually took a picture of that. So anyways, I want to say thank you to this community, to Sarah. I want to say thank you for letting me be so ecstatic to share this story and to be on this stage and to actually share this stage with my husband. But more importantly, to be around you. You are all love, and every single one of you, and I really appreciate you all so, so much. So thank you.